Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo. Hex! The aliens are coming! And it's up to us to save the planet in Earth Defense Force Insect Armageddon.
Well, I have no problem shooting crawly bugs badge. We'll also be flinging around that shield of patriotic power in Captain America.
And it's about time for an iPad Roundup. Touchtastic.
We'll also meet a Brisbane musician whose tunes have made it into games all over the world.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
The global war had been going on for a long time. All the experienced pilots were dead.
Time to read the news, Hex.
I know.
Come on. Here we go. Off to the news.
Good game.
Electronic Arts has bought casual games developer PopCap for potentially as much as $1.3 billion. The purchase of the studio was only $650 million, with another $100 million going towards buying back stock. The rest of the money is dependent on PopCap's earnings over the next 2 years. The release of Double Fine's latest game, Trenched, is being blocked in parts of Europe due to a trademark dispute. The trademark for a board game called Trench, an abstract take on World War I era trench warfare, was filed in 2009. Its owners are arguing Trenched infringes on their copyright, which covers both board and video games. Double Fine has promised European gamers they'll get their hands on Trenched eventually, and are working on a solution. Electronic Arts is switching off more of their servers for older games. As of August 11th, the online servers for several games, including Army of Two on console, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat on Xbox, Need for Speed Most Wanted on PC and Xbox, Skate on consoles, and Tiger Woods PGA Tour 10 on all platforms, will be shut down permanently. Activision has filed a complaint to gain control of the domain modernwarfare3.com after it was found to be redirecting users to Battlefield 3's official website. The website was created by an anonymous user via a proxy and currently hosts anti-Modern Warfare 3 material. When it started redirecting users to Battlefield's site, Activision took notice and filed a complaint. The owner has 20 days to respond.
Good game.
Earth Defense Force 2017 was a big, dumb, but hugely fun game that developed a real cult following. There's just something so nifty about obliterating hordes of aliens. But just when we thought the infestation had been eradicated, those pesky bugs are back, and now we have EDF Insect Armageddon.
You play as Lightning, a soldier who's faced with all sorts of bugs such as bees, ticks, spiders, ants, and their bigger companions, huge praying mantises, daddy longlegs, and dropships. These alien insectoids are laying siege to New Detroit, and to thwart them you'll need to shoot a lot and reload a lot.
Yes, in fact, if you time it right, you get a quicker active reload, Gears of War style, so you can get back to shooting in half the time. You'll be dodging fire and switching between powerful rocket weapons to take down singular big foes, with a range of shotguns and machine guns for tackling the swarms.
And they do swarm you. At times there are tons of enemies on screen at once, and it's just total chaos. To call this game spammy is an understatement. The world itself is quite simple, with just the odd civilian running about, and it looks a bit samey too. But there are a few vehicles and turrets for you to commandeer. And everyone loves a good mech.
There are 4 soldier classes to choose from. There's the all-rounder, the trooper, a tactical engineer class who can deploy turrets, a battle class good for tanking who moves frustratingly slow but has a fancy shield, and the highly maneuverable jet class who is by far the most useful, I thought.
Yeah, it's so much easier to get around as the jet guy, but you do have to be careful to manage his energy bar, which is his fuel as well as his ammunition. When you unlock more weapons, the autolock missiles combined with speed make him quite formidable. Hex, I found playing this game on my own pretty boring, and then you get halfway through the game and you just reach a point where it gets a bit too hard to play on your own because you don't have that human covering you while you plant mines on those ant hills. The AI does a pretty good job of healing you unless you fall under some debris or if you die too close to a clump of spawning enemies, but yeah, you absolutely need to play this game with a friend.
Definitely, co-op is the way to go. We can only test out split-screen 2-player, but you can have up to 3 players online. Up to 6 players can also pile in for a survival mode in which you face wave after wave of bugs until you die. If you start a co-op game, you will have to start the game from the beginning again though, as levels you've unlocked in single player don't carry over, which is a little bit disappointing. We were only able to play this in offline multiplayer though, so it might be different online.
It's not the most visually impressive game. It's not trying to be a AAA title, but I think it looks fine for what it is. Plus, buildings fall down a lot. just thought the missions were a bit too simplistic. You just move to one point, press triangle, clear some waves, then move to the next and repeat. The dialogue does keep things moving along relatively well.
Lightning, intel reports a straggler in the area. Another Ravager carrier. They want you to try and bring it down.
But pretty quickly you realise just how super repetitive this game is. I think some will enjoy this game, but I just don't get the appeal personally. And it's not the low budget feel, it's that repetition of the fights, and the spamminess of it that gets me.
Yeah, but you could say Space Invaders is repetitive too, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a fun blast. I mean, this game is so obviously about being a big, cheesy assault of B-grade carnage. It knows what it is. It's not trying to be serious like Alien, it's just trying to be goofy. Like Starship Troopers. Firing rockets into those ants and watching them go splat is really fun, especially when you've got a bunch of mates by your side and everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
I admit that is fun, but it didn't have enough content for the asking price, I think, and it's not even priced as a AAA title. There is some replay value in the survival mode and also the campaign remix mode, but in the end, I just found I got tired of this game, so I'm giving it 5.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Well, I think if you enjoyed the first one, then you'll be up for this mission too. It's not about the graphics or the story, it's almost about feeling like a small insect yourself, taking on hordes of giant enemies and enjoying the hectic mania of it all. So I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Alright, Hex, it's time to drive home the viewer's verdict on the Gran Turismo series and the worthiness of that thereof. Are you ready?
Badge, I'm not even sure that wheel is GT compatible.
This desk also is in a car.
Alright, well, how about we start with the poll we had running on the GG website. It asked, fanboy or hater, which are you when it comes to the Gran Turismo series? 26% of the vote was fanboy, with 17% hater, and a huge 57% voting care factor 0.
The people who just don't care in a big way.
The haters may have been in the minority, but they were still busy spewing words of pure bile into our inbox, like this from Rainbow Dash in Belmont, New South Wales.
The Gran Turismo series is boring to the power of Final Fantasy XIII. Fun and excitement has been removed completely to ensure GT is a realistic driving simulator, and to top it all off, the music has about as much depth as a hotel elevator. And that wasn't the only email to equate Gran Turismo with all things boring. Hunter Zero had this to say.
I was once a huge fan of the GT. I bought a PS1 just for that game, but while the number next to the title has increased, it's still basically the same grindy game. You grind through the license tests, you grind to unlock cars, you grind through races to afford a hopped up car that can beat everything, and then that's about it. Grindy.
Sounds grindy.
Well, gamers don't like having to do the same thing over and over for seemingly little reward. Taser116 emailed in this to say.
I am a hater of the Gran Turismo series because you have to race perfectly on a line around a track to win, and then if you do win the race, your prize is a little bit of money to buy a new car. But it takes you forever to have enough money to buy the supercars they advertise with. Gran Turismo is definitely all about chasing that dangling carrot, but at least it's a carrot with awesome torque.
Well, not many wanted to fault Gran Turismo on its realism or lack thereof, but for some, it's not realism they're looking for in a racer anyway. Gran Turismo is too realistic for me. If I wanted to feel like I was driving, I'd actually hop in my car and go driving for real. I'm a Need for Speed or Mario Kart kind of guy. Give me a red shell to throw any day.
If only you could do bunny hop turns with real cars, Hex. There is a good point there though, I think. Not everybody wants a driving sim, they'd rather play a racing game.
Well, Barjo, one of the biggest complaints was about GT's lack of damage model. Killboy from Brisbane wrote,
Gran Turismo, what a waste of time. A car racing game in this day and age where the damage is still so unrealistic that it's often quicker to bounce off walls rather than break. Well done. Here's an idea. Maybe spend a little less time perfecting the interior design of a Nissan GT Skyline's dashboard and spend just a second to add the ability to blow up your car when you hit a wall at 250 kilometers per hour. I gotta say, Hex, the lack of in-game damage really rattles my muffler.
But it's been countered in fine style by our first fanboy letter. There is no logic behind hating Gran Turismo. It sets a benchmark for graphics and depth in a racing game and invented the term car PG. After playing GT5, I found no other racing game had anywhere near the depth of the GT games. The lack of an efficient damage model is no problem, as most people don't buy racing games just to slam a Mercedes into a wall at 200 kilometers per hour. Snap. Good point, Mega Scatman 4.
Well, I guess it comes down to what style of racer you prefer. It all depends on what kind of racing game you're looking for. If you're looking for a street racer, play Burnout. But if you're looking for a realistic simulation that you can still have a lot of fun with, you can't go wrong with the Gran Turismo series, excluding Gran Turismo PSP.
Yeah, GT on PSP was a little bit of a...
I remember all too well, Hex.
It's not for me. 5 out of 10 rubber chickens. And what's with not letting me drive into the Grand Canyon?
All right then, well, before we blow a gasket, let's cool our engines with some more comments from the fanboys.
Good idea. Here's one from Bowie and Victoria who had something to say about Gran Turismo's long-serving producer.
Kazunori Yamauchi, as part of Team Schulze, placed first in class at the 2011 Nürburgring 24-hour event. Clearly, this is a man that knows and cares about racing. This passion for racing is what makes the Gran Turismo series great.
Hex, I can clearly see both the good and bad about GT now. The fanboys and haters have presented illuminating arguments, both.
Well, we can't let it rest there, Barjo. It's time to set up another ferocious debate. Are you ready?
I was born ready, Hex.
Start sharpening your opinions because we want you to argue about one of the biggest franchises out there, World of Warcraft.
You and your kind thought that the fires of doom had been quenched.
Remember that we really want you to send in some video responses, so put the pen down and pick up a camera. You can submit your entries on our website here.
Now fight! Whoa.
Good game.
Come down from there. Well, Barjo, we've definitely been caught more than once sneaking in a bit of gaming time on the office iPad when we're meant to be working, playing other games. So I thought it was about time we did another little roundup.
Excellent idea, Hex.
I thought so. Let's kick things off with this Aussie-developed game. Brought to us by Perth-based developer Big Bucket Software, The Incident is an arcade-style game with really great retro design that relies on physics-driven gameplay.
You'll be casually walking down the street when all of a sudden the universe opens up and starts piling down on your head in a constant stream of debris. You'll need to tilt left and right to try and avoid being hit by falling cars and bathtubs while tapping the screen to jump and climb on top of the pile.
A bar roughly the size of the incoming object flashes repeatedly at the top of the screen, giving you an idea of where it's going to fall. However, if you do find yourself buried, a quick shake of the device will see you extracted from the cave in a protective bubble that floats you back to the surface. There are also balloons with cash for you to jump for, and every now and then a giant crystal will fall from the heavens, granting you with a blessed one-up.
It sounds fairly straightforward, and it is, and it's a bit repetitive too, but that's the nature of these arcade-like games. There's a fantastic chiptune melody that plays the whole way throughout, and I did find this a bit easy to play on the iPhone, but it's fantastic having that bigger screen, Hex.
You'll die often, but it's that kind of addictive gameplay that'll keep you going back, and I thought it was great use of the gyroscope too, so I'd recommend it. I'm giving it 7.
Yeah, there's a decent challenge here. I'm giving it 7 as well.
Next, let's take a look at Backstab from Gameloft. Now, I was instantly drawn to this one after I saw the screenshots. Pistols, sword fighting, naval ships and cannons, and the graphics are just beautiful.
Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't really measure up, does it? No. In Backstab, you play as the swashbuckling Englishman Henry Blake, who has been accused of treason and is now seeking revenge. You're thrown into battle against the Spanish and must fight your way through a series of repetitive side missions and fetch quests, which will serve as annoying filler to an unnecessarily lengthy game.
Ouch, but yeah, you're absolutely right. There's just not a lot to love here. And the game even employs a bit of Assassin's Creed free running and climbing, which we all know is very close to my heart. But the virtual thumbstick just makes it all a bit awkward. Trying to jump off a building you've accidentally climbed is frustratingly difficult. And then the combat is mind-numbingly boring. It's mostly just spammy, button-mashy sword play. Although I did enjoy the occasional shootout with my pistol.
I encountered a few bugs that made me had to restart the level, and I had to save a bunch of peasants who all looked suspiciously identical.
I expect an apology.
The voice acting was all right. They took the time to record a number of different voice actors for the townspeople and the central characters, but then all of their lines of dialogue were the same.
How dare you?
How dare you?
You peasant.
Filthy peasant.
Why? I mean, it's great the games look this good on an iPad, but what's the point if they're just going to be repetitive and not fun to play? So I'm giving this one 3.5.
I'm giving it 4. Next up, Storm in a Teacup by developers Cobra Mobile. Here you play a girl called Storm who travels about in a moving teacup. This is a puzzle platformer that can be deceptively difficult at times.
Yeah, I really love this one, Badge. I think this is the perfect kind of game that I want to play on a mobile device. The platforming appears simple, however executing Storm's jumps is no easy task. She has a power meter which charges her jumps, and timing your taps to suit the particular height and width of certain gaps can be really tricky.
The game switches things up by adding levels where Storm is on a boat, for example, adding a swaying motion that messes with your momentum. And there's plenty of baddies and traps around that are strategically placed to set you back time and time again.
There are a few subtle little Big Planet influences here and there, like hard-to-reach stickers that you can collect to customize Storm and her teacup. Some of these were just beyond me though, Barger, no matter how many times I tried to get them. So there's a good level of challenge here for completists. I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
I felt like some of the puzzle elements were repeated a bit too much, and there's nothing really that we haven't seen before here. It got hard towards the end, but I would have rather that happened a bit sooner, so I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10.
Oh my God, yeah, EA, FIFA. Jesus, to this day it's ingrained in my brain. It's like, it's in the game. I don't play it as much as I'd like to. Unfortunately, I got some friends who become highly competitive, and I feel like a noob every time I play them. That franchise has gone phenomenal. Definitely FIFA.
Good game.
Mick Gordon is a musician who composes for some of the biggest games around, all from the comfort of his own apartment.
We paid him a visit up in Brisbane to find out how he got such a groovy gig.
My name's Mick Gordon. I make music and sound effects for video games. So I started obviously playing guitar at about 12, and a year later I was in pubs gigging and playing with other bands and all that sort of stuff, which was great fun. And then from there I started looking at other ways to make money out of music. Because obviously, you know, I wasn't going to be a pop star or a country singer or something like that, so I needed to make a bit more of a career out of it. I started looking at making music for film, but it just was very, very difficult to get into. Not only that, but there was a whole bunch of video game companies here in Australia, and nobody was really doing sound and music. So it was really a kind of open thing staring me in my face. I started working at Pandemic Studios in Brisbane, and back when we were doing Destroy Humans 2. So we'd have other sound designers and musicians who'd make music and sound effects and stuff. And it was my job to put those sounds into the game. And after a while, I started, you know, thinking, oh, I could really turn this into something. So I left Pandemic and had a whole bunch of sounds and music that I'd made outside of work. But after a while, I started putting this stuff out there. So I'd start sending it to friends and they were saying, hey, this is pretty cool. And then started actually emailing it to different video game companies. So, you know, I ended up going to GDC a couple of times and meeting some different people. And it just happened to be that one of the head audio guys from EA was in the audience. And he sent me an email and asked me if I wanted to start writing some music for the Need for Speed games, which is what I've been doing for about 2 years now. Need for Speed's cars and guitars, and I'm a guitarist, I started playing guitar, so it was kind of a natural fit, and I was able to sit in and you know, write some pretty grungy, ugly, aggressive tracks for Need for Speed Shift. So originally we just started with drums, and drums are always a good bass because we get to kind of drive the track along. And we can feel now that even though we haven't got car noises and all that sort of stuff, that we're getting a bit more dramatic already. So we started grabbing a whole bunch of kind of different stringed instruments. So we had cellos and other sort of stuff that we got in here, different violins, to play very quickly. So there all of a sudden became our drama. And all we've got to do after that is put the two together. And then we get something, like, hopefully, kind of like this. One of the best parts about my job is I can wake up 20 metres from where I work. One of the worst parts about my job is I can wake up 20 metres from where I work. When working on trailers, often nowadays especially, the audio team, and I guess every team on a trailer, is almost as big as the game. It's huge. Like the audio guys, there could be 30, 40 people that'll work on a trailer just sound-wise. Writing all the music, and especially if you start counting all the musicians and different all that sort of stuff, it's huge. So much money and time and effort goes into making the game look good in trailers because that's how fans, you know, get their first glimpse of the game. And often the trailers are done before the gameplay is ready to be shown and things as such as well. But in terms of, you know, creating sounds and things for it, it's complete creative control to say how whatever you want often a lot of the time. If you look at the recent Battlefield 3 trailers, I mean, they're incredibly creative. They sound great. So there's definitely a lot of time and effort that goes into making the trailer sound just as cool as the game's gonna be. I'm a huge fan of horror. I really want to get some more horror stuff. I love the action stuff. I love all that, you know, boys blowing up, explosions, guns, and all that sort of stuff is fun. But I'd love to do something more emotionally in depth too. Something like Heavy Rain is absolutely stunning. To be able to tell a story like that is extraordinary, and to be on that from a sound perspective would be absolutely amazing.
He's dead. He's dead and it's all my fault.
You know, in the past where we used to have one guy, you know, sitting down making a whole bunch of beeps and bloops up until, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure this little cartridge can, you know, hold all the sounds and sound really awesome. Now we're completely different. We've got recording studios recording a whole series of different actors. We've got guys doing sound effects all around the world, recording weapons over here, making footsteps over here. And then all of a sudden we've got, you know, musicians heading into recording studios with 100-piece orchestras. The budgets that are spent on video game soundtracks now are on par with movies, and the result is exactly the same.
Hex, normally I will do just about anything to avoid playing a movie tie-in game, but I was in the mood for a super beat-em-up when Captain America Super Soldier crossed our desks.
Well, the Captain's got some serious Marvel comic cred, so you'd think that some of that would rub off onto the game. It's 1944 and recruit Steve Rogers has been transformed into the world's first super soldier, Captain America.
Fall back, soldier. I'll take it from here.
His job is to stop the villainous Dr. Arnim Zola from helping the Nazis to create a master race with the aid of something called the Tesseract Cube, or as Marvel fans will know it, the Cosmic Cube.
Much of the story is revealed by collecting film reels along the way, so you can get deeper into that if you want to, but this is first and foremost a beat-em-up. You'll be infiltrating Nazi facilities, trying to discover their plans and taking out as many goons as you can along the way. Your standard enemies are pretty dumb. In fact, many of them don't even have guns, just electrified sticks. And the ones that do have guns are very slow to shoot at you, and they take it in turns. Oh no, please, after you. It's no wonder the Nazis are engineering super soldiers, Hex. These guys are crap at war.
Well, I guess it's the developer's way of dealing with gameplay for a superhero that doesn't use guns himself. Cap has one button for attack, one for grapple, and a counter button. In fact, you can tell they've pretty much used Arkham Asylum as the blueprint for this combat. At first it feels clunky and sloppy, and parts of it are. You'll end up punching the air a fair bit. Once you get into the groove, you'll start to notice some really sophisticated animations going on. Moves are chained together fluidly, and you'll be watching for those yellow indicators to go for a counter, and the red ones which you'll need to duck and roll for. Elite enemies in boss fights will have well-balanced button mashing moments to make the fights more exciting. I found I also quite liked the counter system, although the game doesn't do a very good job of explaining how to use it, so it's not really that fun until you figure that out for yourself. To perform a successful counter, you'll need to move the left stick towards an enemy at the same time as you press circle. Successful counters reward you with an exciting move and also contribute to your power bar, as do well-timed platform jumps and bullet reflections.
If you fill up one bar, you can use it for an unblockable, powerful attack, and it's good to save these for the elite soldiers and boss fights. With 2 bars, you can weaponize an enemy, which occasionally will let you use them as a weapon to take down other enemies, but mostly it's just a more powerful attack. Fill all the bars and you're an unstoppable force for a short period of time. I think I only used that about twice in the whole game though, Hex, because it was just too tempting to go for those slow motion, unblockable attacks.
Yeah, they look great every time.
Captain America is also a masterful thief and will steal anything from ceramic eggs to thermoses to hats.
You can also steal schematics, which give you bonuses against certain enemies, which is a nice touch. But the standard fights are so easy that you don't really need them.
Hex, at first I was feeling pretty down about this game. That is until the first boss fight, who happened to be a Nazi with a robot arm and a monocle.
Death, and the death of all you hold dear.
Gun! and the boss fights just get better from that point on. The only downside is you don't have that much incentive to use Captain America's shield except for deflecting bullets. The upside to that is the deflection mechanic and the subtle indicator is fantastic.
Well, there are some special shield abilities that you can unlock and upgrade, such as the shield dash and ground pound, but they just take too long to pull off, and it's much easier to rely on counters than risk getting hit. I mean, that's a pretty big minus, Barjo, to have the Captain's shield not an integral part of the combat. It does look cool when you whack someone with it, though.
It's a shame it doesn't have any God of War-like moves you can do with the shield, or just better special abilities, but even so, I still enjoyed all of the combat. What I didn't enjoy was the hit-and-miss platforming. There are about 3 or 4 points in this game where you'll be totally lost, and you won't know where you need to climb or what you need to hit to give you something to climb. It'll drive you nuts. This level you're seeing now is a perfect example. It took me ages to work out where to go, and the camera angle just wasn't helping at all. It's nice to have this kind of jumping level design within a game like this, but it needs to be obvious and subtle at the same time. So you need to know where to jump by colorings or markings, but it also needs to be subtle enough that it's not just pointing you straight at it. And if you look at games like Uncharted, they just use that combination of the coloring and marking and camera work to make it all so seamless.
Yeah, I mean, here you have to push up on the D-pad to make things that you interact with glow golden, which is just tedious and annoying. There are definitely some rage quit moments throughout the game because of that platforming. Also, we reviewed the PS3 version, so we haven't seen the 360, but the game does suffer from some erratic frame rate issues. It's very subtle, so you won't notice any huge jerky moments, but the whole game has that familiar framey shudder, which you probably will notice. It's a shame, because otherwise it's a pretty good looking game.
Yeah, the other downside is it's very short, like many movie games. The stats page said I beat this game in 5 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's more like 6 to 7 on average, and I think that's why they put all those collectibles in their budget, to give the player something more to do and add length to the game. I just found the platforming too frustrating to bother with any of it though, even with the combat rewards. Final thoughts?
I love superhero games, Hex, and as much as this game tried to make me hate it, and it tried pretty hard, I didn't. It's a good supplement to the film, because there are some really nice elements here hiding under the not so nice ones. So I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
You know, it's not up there in production values with some of the other big games in the market, but I think it's a solid bargain bin beat 'em up with some nice touches to the boss fights. I just felt the difficulty of the enemies was really unbalanced though, and the final fight was really throwaway and dissatisfying, so I'm giving it 5 out of 10 rubber chickens. So did you guess the game for this week? It was the 2002 action shoot-'em-up Robotech Battlecry for GameCube, PS2 and Xbox. Based on the 80s cartoon series, you played pilot Jack Archer, caught up in a hectic battle of Macross Island. Pew pew pew. Next week on the show, we'll see if Harry Potter has any magic left in him.
The stylish role-playing action of Bastion will attempt to dazzle us.
And we answer the call of Juarez, the cartel.
And I think Goose may have a story up his sleeve as well. Thanks to everyone who tweeted along tonight, and don't forget to feed our backs on the Facebook page, the forums, or Twitter, anywhere you can find us. Until next week, gamers, Barjo out.
Hex out.
Hey, who am I?
Hermione.
Yeah. She's rubbish.